All right, Mike, we just got back from the Gears of War Ultimate Edition for Xbox One preview event. We saw multiplayer and single player. I think you were most excited about multiplayer.
Yeah, so back in the day when Gears of War first came out, I played a lot of the multiplayer. I thought it was, they really perfected that third-person shooting, the cover-based shooting, and it felt really great. As soon as I got back into it, all the muscle memory came back. It was kind of weird to see Gears of War without, rose-colored glasses, as they say.
Yeah, for the event, they had us play the Xbox 360 version, the original one, and then immediately go to the Xbox One version so we could see certainly the graphical differences. How did the shooting feel to you between versions? Gears of War has always been a game, that's had a lot of weight behind it. Is there anything that they've done in this Ultimate Edition that's different?
As far as returning to the original game, they still have the bullets coming out of the center of the screen, so that does feel a little different. That was something I never noticed until I went to the sequels back in the day, but now that they brought it back, you kind of notice that.
As opposed to coming out of the rifle barrel.
Right, in 2 and 3 it came out of the end of the gun, as it should, but it was just a design tenet of the first game that they wanted it to come out of the center of the screen, because I think, looking back, I think they were still trying to figure out the third-person shooting and cover mechanics. So once you notice that, it's kind of jarring until you get back into the groove. But there's still that weight. It feels much smoother now with 60 frames per second, especially in multiplayer when you're playing against people who are, generally better than the AI. It actually kind of aligned with my memory more than the actual first game did, which was odd, but being a remaster, I think that's what it's supposed to do.
It's also kind of interesting because there's some things that they consciously decided not to bring back into the first game. For example, the downstate crawl was absent.
Yeah, that's odd because I actually liked it in the later games. I felt like it gave you a lot of strategy even when you were down. You could crawl behind cover if someone's shooting at you from a distance. You could go towards your teammates and sort of help them out when they're trying to pick you back up. And it felt very jarring not to have that because I felt really helpless, and I think I still instinctively was just mashing A when I went down. And as far as things they did bring back, you can also mark enemies to show your teammates where they are if they're not sure. That's another thing that came along in the later sequels after the original 360 game. And I think that's a good thing to bring back. I think it kind of helps your team coordinate where the enemies are. It kind of improves your communication if you're not necessarily just relying on the microphones, which of course is always great anyway, but it just gives you another layer to how you communicate with your team, and I think it was a good call to bring it back. It felt great, it helped me out, and I think it helped my teammates out in the long run.
We also got a chance to check out single player. We played co-op. Saw a lot of my old favorite weapons, such as the Hammer of Dawn. It felt very similar to me as the old. It was graphically upgraded, but again, it felt very classic. They did say that they added, an extra 2 hours of content that was only on PC for the Ultimate Edition?
Yeah, there was these 2 hours late in the game that was only ever came out on the PC version that never made it to console. So this is technically the first time it's ever on consoles with the Xbox One version. And we played a little bit of that. They kind of ended us right at this boss fight with a Brumac that people have played on PC will remember. But yeah, other than that, it doesn't feel too much different. The first Gears of War, people always said that the campaign was much more horror-inspired than the following two, even though 2 and 3 were both very dark as well, but it definitely feels like they're going back to that more confined setting for the most part, and there's like the Hammer of Dawn sequences. I didn't really notice too much stutter. There were a few points, I think, when we were fighting larger enemies, when we first saw the Brumac on screen and the Reavers in the air, and using the Hammer of Dawn, like you mentioned, it kind of showed a little bit of stutter, but nothing that was too invasive, and it just felt like the original Gears of War, just obviously looks much better and feels a little smoother, which is nice.
Now that the Ultimate Edition's been announced, it's a little bit strange timing because backwards compatibility for Xbox One was also just announced. How do you feel about buying the Ultimate Edition versus maybe just waiting for the backwards compatibility for the original Gears 2 and 3?
Well, I think there are a few reasons. It just feels better, especially in the competitive multiplayer maps. It's nice to have 60 frames per second. It's nice to have these maps that look gorgeous compared to what they used to. They kind of got rid of that really dark gray muddy texture that kind of pervaded the original game. It's also funny you mentioned backwards compatibility because if you buy Gears of War Ultimate Edition for $40 and play it before New Year's Eve this year, you'll also get the Xbox 360 versions of Gears of War 2, Gears of War 3, and Gears of War Judgment on Xbox One as part of Microsoft's backwards compatibility plan.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
No problem.